All right, so as we wait for our last couple of stragglers to join, we'll go ahead and start to introduce ourselves. A couple of housekeeping points before we get started. So the chat is disabled for this webinar, but you can use that Q&A button. So if you have questions, you can type them in live. We'll also facilitate some Q&A verbally at the end, but feel free to use that Q&A function in the Teams module to answer questions or ask questions, excuse me, as they come up. Welcome to TLER Tape Light Done Right 2.0. My name is Jill Noga. I am the marketing manager of our RadioRA, Lumaris, and Triathlon solutions here at Lutron. I am joined today by Delia Hansen, who is our sales manager in our AV distribution channel. Welcome, Delia. And also by Devin Columber, who is one of the engineering project leaders on this Lumaris tunable white and RGB tape light. So we got a nice mixture here of marketing, sales, and technical people in here for you. So take advantage. You'll hear from each one of us today. We'll try and keep this lively and exciting as we tell you about what's new with Lumaris. So let's get started by first diving into the agenda. So we'll talk a little bit about tape. We're going to go into the Lumaris difference, some best practices, and do a project walkthrough, how to do this, some design, some layout, figure out what parts and pieces you need to deploy a solution, maybe a quick note on pricing, and then we'll get into that Q&A. So we'll get you in and out as quickly as possible with everything you need to know. So first off, why tape lighting? You know, if you're coming from an electrical background, likely you've been doing tape light for some time. If you're coming from an AV integrator background, you might be new to lighting, but CE Pro put out a report earlier this year that lists lighting fixtures as one of the top categories for growth in the integrated smart home. So we're also seeing this trend where, like we've seen with some of the networks of the past, and Delia can speak more eloquently to this than I can, but you know, we're starting to see this trend where top technologies are migrating from centralized systems to more distributed systems architecture as they progress. So think about wireless communication technology versus hard wiring, that kind of thing. And so we certainly see that come to bear in the smart home. That makes it easier to deploy these solutions on projects. So just a little note to kind of inspire you as we get started here. You know, a lot of our largest dealer partners are experiencing 35, 40, 50% sales growth performance year over year when they adopt lighting as a category into their business, and smart lighting in particular. So if you could give your customers something that they want, that they're asking for in a way that goes above and beyond all expectations, is that something that you would think about adopting into your business? We hope that's something that you'll be able to answer a clear yes to at the end of today. So quickly, let's just go through some popular applications for tape light, right? You walk around the neighborhood, you see it in all the kids' bedroom windows. It's certainly all over TikTok. That's not exactly the tape light we're talking about today. We're going to talk about the professional level solutions and how they're deployed on projects. So of course we have under cabinet, right? We've been doing tape light in kitchens for a long time now. A nice quote from one of our customers just talking about it's really the lighting that makes everything sing and is the finishing touch on a project. Can't undersell and undervalue the importance of lighting in a renovation, especially a kitchen. Then we also have millwork and shelving. So being able to find some creative ways to highlight collections or add some visual interest. Toe kick, of course, a great nightlight application, kitchens, bedrooms, bathrooms. Mirror's edge, you know, one of the fun things about tape is its flexible nature, not needing a rigid channel or extrusion all the time. Around the TV, this is a real installation from Drew Swansboro. He's a RAW 3 Pro up in British Columbia, and Drew did this tunable white installation around the TV, adding a nice ambient glow to the homeowner's TV watching experience. Of course, headboard is a great way that you could use tape to serve as a nightlight. It's another soft ambient glow. Stairs. This is a super interesting way. We've heard a lot about a lot of requests for information on how we did this in the first instance of Lumaris and now with the second. And it's certainly a great way that you can add some visual interest and functional lighting for safety as well. Walk-in closet. Who doesn't need a better lighting system to choose their wardrobe or their shoe selection for the day? And then Decorative Cove. This is another real Lumaris installation done by DTW Smart Homes. So you can see they kind of created their own housing there to accommodate the Lumaris two-channel tunable white controller with some plug-in power supplies, and was able to add some great tunable white accent lighting to that Decorative Cove. So lots of places that we can put tape. Really, creativity knows no bounds with tape. So let's talk about why Lumaris is different. What makes it special? So I mentioned, TikTok a little bit earlier, and if you're doing color tape today, you have a couple of options. So first is your more DIY retail option, things that are standalone. They're typically controlled with a little credit card remote like what you see there, and also a plug-in power supply. These are readily available across any kind of retail platforms, but they're typically not what we would think of when we look for a professional solution or one that can be integrated into an overall lighting control or whole home control system. So if we want to talk about tape in that instance, then we have to switch over to either DMX or potentially Zigbee protocol as well. But with DMX, it's kind of the other end of the spectrum. If you don't know, DMX really came from the theatrical environment where it was used for stage lighting. And so it tends to be more complicated. You have a lot of gear with DMX. You have to do a lot of programming. It's like a third-party integration. And it tends to be more complicated really than you want to deploy an RGB or a tunable white tape light solution in an average American home. So those have been to date are really our two options to do tunable white or RGB lighting. And so we are super excited at CEDIA this year to introduce the Lumaris RGB plus tunable white tape light solution. This is an easier way to do tunable white tape light, and now with the wow factor of RGB. So in 2023 at CEDIA, we introduced just the tunable white Lumaris with 2 channels. This year, we've introduced the RGB plus tunable white solution and really expanded the capabilities as well, which we're going to talk about now. So this is kind of an overview of the system architecture. So we start with our super high quality RGB plus tunable white tape light. It's 5 channels. Then we have this wireless controller, driver, dimmer combination device. So you're doing everything that you need to do in terms of control right in that device. That can be powered by a hardwired power supply, a 96-watt power supply. If you go with that original 2-channel dongle, you also have the option to use the plug-in power supply if that's an option or available to you for a quick retrofit. And then, of course, these controllers talk wirelessly with the RadioRA 3 system processor or HomeWorks as well. And so you get this ultra reliable, clear connect wireless connection that we're known for to deliver that solution. So you're really consolidating all of those devices from that potential DMX option into this one small device that is, smaller than an iPhone and can be tucked away in a cabinet or remotely mounted. So if you aren't familiar with the first kind of iteration of Lumaris, that 2-channel we launched last year, there are a few things that we've built on with this new solution. So thinking through all of the features, we've kept a lot of what was really special and really embraced about that original solution, like the fact that it was native, you didn't need any integration, it was wireless, it provided 0.1% dimming, that Lutron hallmark capability, warm dim, field cuttable, that combination driver controller. Each one of those is individually addressable. You get all of that. And then with this new RGB solution and this new multi-channel controller, you also can do more tape per controller. So now it's up to 32 feet of tape on one controller. That doubles the original spec from what we launched in 2023. We also heard a lot about extrusions. We now are offering compatible extrusions. We'll talk about that more later. You can remotely mount these devices with flexible wiring terminals. So really took into account and talked to a lot of electricians about how they like to do wiring for tape light, incorporate that feedback into our product. We also have a new 96-watt power interface that's 60% smaller than that white box you saw in the previous slide. And we've simplified connections with soldered leads, so just saving that step when you're getting started with your tape run. So a lot to love about this new solution. And again, those things that are starred there, just differentiators in what you get from choosing Lumaris versus another tape light solution. So now Delia is going to walk us through how to plan this on a project.
Thanks, Jill. This is great. So we started out with last year providing a tunable white with warm dim. That product is still available today, and there are several reasons why. One, it has a plug-in power supply. Two, it gives you really high quality white light. You may not get the RGB on top of it, but it's also going to be a money-saving option for you if you have a really budget-conscious person. And it really goes well with the aesthetic of a designer. So if you have an interior designer, lighting designer, or anyone on the project who's really worried about what their surfaces, finishes, textiles are going to look like, they prefer to have a nice high quality white light over pops of color in a lot of places like under cabs, toe kicks, or mirrors in bathrooms, because those are where you really want clean white light. And then of course we also have the RGB, which we'll talk about in the next application. So let's start out looking at a typical design. Let's say we want to do a RadioRA 3. So in this example, we're going to do RA 3. It is also available in HomeWorks, so you can get our tape light in either of those two control categories. And we're going to start out looking at under cabs here. So the first thing we want to do is look at how much tape we're going to actually need, selecting that color temperature. Do we want something warmer or something cooler? We're going to count the number of zones that we want to be able to control, or whatever number of zones we get from the number of feet we need. And then we're going to choose the best power supply based upon the application. The last section, we'll go through and check all of our connections, our T-tabs, and make sure that our wire lengths are within spec so that we can power it up and get that great quality control. So let's look at our measuring and selecting of the tape. First of all, we have two different tape roll sizes. We have a 16-foot, which is perfectly cut at the maximum length already. And then we have a 98-foot that you can then cut down into smaller lengths so that you can put that into underneath like one or two cabinet segments and smaller chunks of space, maybe toe kicks underneath staircases. Then we have three color temperature options available today. So we have the soft white and the daylight, and then the color tape plus tunable white as well. So there's three different options, but in this version, we're going to be looking at the white light only. So in this application, we can see that the color temperature of the lights is a little bit cooler, plus the customer has already stated that they enjoy that cool white light in the kitchen. So we want to kind of match that and stay with it as we design our under cab. So we're going to select the daylight option that goes up to 4,000 Kelvin. Now we need to figure out how much we actually need. So we're going to measure out 20 inches on the left side of the microwave, 38 on the right, and then a 102-inch length that's going to finish the rest of the countertops going over to the dishwasher. It's well within the 16-foot length, so that's going to be perfect within one individual roll. So we can do that for $300 at list. Now we're going to figure out how many zones we need. Each zone needs its own separate controller, and each zone has to stay within that 16.4-foot length. So we look at our power supplies. We have one that comes with a plug-in, so you can just plug it into the wall. It goes into one of the little cables, that little round jack at the bottom, and then plugs right into an outlet. And then you can get one on its own, totally separate, and then you can pick whatever power supply we want later. So now, of course, we have under cab. It's all in one horizontal plane. So we're probably going to use one controller and not separate out that control. So that means we'll cover it with a $400 controller. Done. Lastly, we're going to select our power supply. We have two to choose from. The first one is the simple plug-in. So this is going to give us the control for the 16 or the power for 16.4 feet of tape. And we're just going to plug it into the wall. That's a T120 24DC-15. Then we look at our other power supply, which is the hardwired power interface. This is going in line with power, but we can control up to 3 of those little controller interfaces off of a single power supply. So if we were doing more, we would probably want to look at this option. So of course, as we look at our single row of lights going into the undercab, there is a power outlet that's up above the microwave in order to power that. So we have power close by, it's accessible, it's within 10 feet of the tape, and it'll completely power the entire run. So this is simple. We'll just get one plug-in power supply, and that will do the trick for 80 bucks. Lastly, we have to figure out our in-between components. So between the controller, we'll have wire coming out of that, 3-conductor, and then going to clips that can connect to, it's an alligator clip that'll connect to the tape. We use an alligator clip because as tape turns on, there's a lot of heat that's dissipated from it, and heat causes things to contract and expand during use. And if you don't have clips on there to hold in place, you'll lose the connection, and then that's how you'll get flickering or inconsistent on-off control of your LED tape light. So our connectors, we have 10 connectors you can buy in a pack, and then we have individual 3-conductor 22-gauge wire so that you can get that up to 10 feet away from the controller and the power supply. Now, when we're doing corners, we have to keep a couple of things in mind. We really don't want to bend or fold the tape. We want to try to make those connections either utilizing the bend of the tape, so going vertically around a corner, or cutting the tape and using wire and interconnects to create a nice 90-degree turn. So we're going to need a few of these in the design. We put all of the little purple squares where we're going to need to have those connectors, and the yellow lines are where we're going to need those 3-conductor wire. So we look at this space and we can tell above that microwave, we're going to need about 6 to 7 feet of the conductor wire and a couple of inches to be able to go around that one corner. We're going to need to have 4 of those little connectors. And if we go ahead and check that out, we'll be able to move towards our total price package where we're looking at each individual item, the tape, the controller, power supply, interconnects, and our little 3-conductor wire. And the total comes out to $938 list. And this has everything we need to be able to dim it, control it, integrate it, and have our tunable white as well as warm dimming capabilities. So now the next thing we need to think about is, are we kitting this or not? So we have to check out whether or not we have a hardwired or plug-in power supply. We have to make sure that we're probably using 16-foot segments, or at least that's where we want to land, how much total tape we need, total number of connectors. So let's check out whether or not this system works with a kit. So with this one, we have 16 feet of tape, fits well within. We need 1 controller, 1 plug-in power supply. We need 4 connectors, and 5 of them come in the kit. And then we need a little bit less, 6 or 7 feet of conductor wire, and 10 feet come in the kit. And all of that happens for 700 bucks. So based on that installation, a kit would work great. And now I want to turn it over to Devin so that we can go into the same style of application, but at this time, we're going to add that RGB color pop to it as well. Devin?
Thanks, Delia. So Delia did a great job of going over our tunable white tape, which has been on the market for a little over a year now. Now we're going to look at this very similar example, same kitchen, but with our new Lumaris RGB plus tunable white product. Some additions we have here are some added capability of RGB in addition to your tunable white, so you can have your tunable white go as normal, but then add some RGB pop color in it. It must be powered by a hardwire power interface, so you no longer have that plug-in power supply option. It's only our hardwire power interface you can see in the bottom right. And now we have an allowance up to 32.8 feet of tape, which means now we can drive tape under cabinet and over cabinet. So looking at the kitchen, we'll start measuring out our tape. You can see the under cabinet that we did before, the 20-inch, the 38-inch, and the 102-inch section. This time above the cabinets, we're adding a 94-inch and a 102 section to this, so that both of those together add up to a 13.5-foot section and a 16.3-foot section. So 2 5-meter spools of our RGB tunable white tape will work great for this. And each of those are a 325 list. After the tape, we'll count our zones and our controllers. Luckily, since our new controller does up to 32.8 feet, the under cabinet and over cabinet can work in the same zone. because we are under 32.8 feet without exceeding 16.4 feet in a single run. One controller will cover it. Something to add is that we'll need that hardwired power interface there on the right. So that's an LUPH3A. Something else to note as you're counting your zones and controllers is we can also have our under cabinet and over cabinet in different zones. In order to do different zones, you'll need 2 controllers since one controller is one zone. And you're still good here because your total tape length is less than the 32.8 for each controller. Just adding the other controller would be 500. And luckily, since you have 2 controllers, you're still under 32.8 feet. You only need one power interface. That one power interface can power both of your controllers. Following the same steps as before, now we're going to check out our connectors and our cable. Looking at our yellow cable, it comes out to about 10 feet. This time it is a 6-conductor cable. The SKU for that is an LU-WK1 6W. And then looking at our connectors, it adds up to about 7 tape-to-wire connectors. Again, these are also a 6-pin connector, so a little different than our previous tunable white connectors. And those also come in a 10-pack, similar to the other ones. Great, and we will use the adhesive backing for this instead of extrusions for this case. Some added step that's nice in our new tape is we can now confirm our limitations in Designer. So this is coming soon, our Tape Light Design Assistant. This is going to live inside of Canvas View in Homeworks and in RA. So get excited for that. This will help you understand and calculate your power draw limits of your tape light installation. On the right, you can see your inputs include your power wire and your control wire. So you can put in your wire lengths and your wire gauges, as well as your total tape lengths. It'll do all of your wattage calculations and tell you whether your input meets the spec for the product, whether you're approaching the limit and you might see a little bit of light drop out, or that you've exceeded the limit by a good amount and you should consider reconfiguring your setup. This is a great new feature that we're very excited to launch later this year. Now wrapping all this together for our final proposal, assuming everything did fit our limitations and that design assistant, which we know it does. We have our tape, our controller, our power supply, connector baggie, and wire baggie. This brings up to a total list price of $1,700, but that is one zone for above and below. So if we went to second zone, we're going to add 500 for that second controller. Another thing that's coming soon that we're very excited about towards the end of the year is another starter kit. So you've seen the starter kit for the tunable white. Now we're going to have a starter kit for our RGB tunable white. And this starter kit's going to have that model number there with the MTK in the middle. That'll include most things that you need for an installation like this. The only thing we would need in additional would be a connector baggie. So that will bring our total list price all the way down to just under $1,300. Thank you, and I'll pass it off to Jill for extrusions.
Thanks, Devin. Appreciate you walking through that. So Devin actually worked closely on extrusions here as well. And this section, you know, we got a lot of questions when we launched that initial product in 2023 was, how do I know when I use an extrusion or not? So let's talk about what an extrusion is. With the tape itself, you get an adhesive backing. So it's a common, 3M VHB type of backing. So you can mount that directly to a surface, or you can choose to go with extrusions, which are also sometimes called channels, an aluminum channel, for it to live in the housing essentially for tape, and then lenses, which go on top, and those are secured with screws into whatever substrate you're going to mount in. So again, toe kick or under cabinet, you're just going to screw in that extrusion first before you put that tape light in. So there's no right or wrong answer per se about when you need an extrusion or not. There's pros and cons to each approach. So if you're using the adhesive backing, you obviously get the benefit of the fact that it is in and of itself flexible. So if you're trying to do a curved mirror or go a curved piece of furniture, something like that, and with a more organic form, you get that flexibility in the tape light. It's also faster to do. Some people, would prefer to move quickly and then not have to deal with mounting the extrusion. And then you get that limited light diffusion. I will remind everyone it does require some proper preparation of the surface. But on the extrusion side, one of the benefits you get is that it is a little bit more time consuming, but it also provides more longevity. So it also takes away any variability in what you may be mounting to. Sometimes we hear from pros that, tape or adhesive backing isn't the best at sticking to a wood cabinet. So adding an aluminum extrusion for the tape to stick to provides more longevity over time. And then with that lens on top, you also get protection from damage. So particularly in a toe kick type of situation, right? Or a kitchen where you might be cooking, or bathroom where you might be splashing, it's a nice way to provide some extra protection for that tape light as well. And then the lens of an extrusion can also give you that unified light diffusion, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So it's not really like a yes, no, it's you kind of have to take these things into approach. Think about what extrusions and lenses do. The lens in particular is a big part of diffusing that light. So it's kind of like a lampshade for tape. If you think about the difference in a bare bulb compared to when you add a tape, that lens, you can see the diodes are no longer visible. The light is reflected in a uniform way. It's a little bit cleaner of a look as well, particularly if this tape is going to be partly visible. So lenses tend to provide that softer glow from your light source and take away a bit of that harshness that you can get from exposed diodes or exposed light sources. So tips for choosing an extrusion, bear with me, this is a lot, but it's kind of your cheat sheet. So you want to make sure that the channel fits the width of your connector, not just your tape. Oftentimes the connectors are a bit wider than the tape itself. So you want to make sure it fits. The opacity and translucency of a diffuser impacts that light output. So you may be able to use one lens for a toe kick. It's going to function as a night light. And that may not work so well for an under cabinet in a kitchen where you want to be doing a lot of chopping and prepping and cooking and need a more direct task light. So be mindful of what lens you're choosing for your different applications. Another thing to understand is that the depth, or how far away those diodes are from the extrusion and the lens, or from the lens, can affect the diffusion of light and also the output. So, if you're further away, you're going to get more diffusion. If you're closer, you're going to maybe see those diodes more visibly. So be mindful of that depth in the extrusion and lens as well when you're deciding which to use. And then extrusions are also available for multiple installation types. So surface mount, angled or corner, recessed or mud-in. There's lots of different ones. You want to choose whatever is best for the task at hand, the project you're working on. And then our last tip here, avoid using black lenses. Sometimes you'll see these on the market. Black actually absorbs the light and makes the diodes more visible. So we wouldn't recommend that for our tape light. But we've made it all so much easier for you. It's good to know some of that and keep it in mind, but we have launched this year at CEDIA as well, these new tape light extrusions directly from Lutron. So it's going to take any of that guesswork and that compatibility work out of your to-do list, and you can just choose the extrusions and order them with your tape from Lutron. We have 7 styles. They fit those different applications like we talked about. All 7 styles fit the tunable white tape and the connector. There are 2 styles that you'll need to solder because if you're using the RGB and tunable white tape light, because they don't quite fit that 6-pin connector. But generally speaking, these will work for most of your projects. They come in 8-foot lengths, and the bundle includes the channel, the diffusing lens, and then you can also get mounting accessories a la carte if you need them. And these, of course, are field cuttable. Some people use hand tools, some people use power tools, but you can cut them on the project site as well. So, now with the addition of the extrusions, we hope that you think of Lutron as your one-stop shop for tape light. This is the SKUs that we now offer, all the model numbers, like I said, for all those 7 offerings. And you can see some nice images here on the right that depict some of those specialty applications like corner or recessed or mud-in, really something for everything. And you can find all this information on the current Lumaris brochure and spec sheet. It's all available online. So with that, I will hand it over to Delia to kind of wrap up, and then we'll jump into a Q&A. Delia?
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for spending some time with us today. I do want to reiterate a few things about Lutron and why we're bringing tape light to the market. So first of all, this is turned into a commodity type product. If it's available on Amazon and you can buy it and any kind of brand that's been OEMing stuff from a manufacturer overseas, it's moved into more of a commoditized range. But what we want to do is we want to take a product that lives in this very DIY, very low performance expectation, and very low profit segment and move it to some place where you guys can make money. All right. So we want to make sure that we're providing you an innovative, differentiated solution. Quality of the white light that we're providing is number one. The dimmability of it is number two. The quality of the color, temperature, and control is number three. The integration of the app to be able to have that color picker and slider so you can have really finite tunable control. Integration to all your favorite brands, not only our own, but voice control and every other major platform that's out there. And then the quality of that end of line testing that you get from Lutron. Right. So this is a product that even though generally when you're selling something else, you may not 100% know that it's designed to work end to end, integrate end to end, have that customer support and tech support available to you after installation, and that quality and longevity. All right. That's what you get with Lutron. And we want to make sure that we take and we pull tape into a place for you guys to be able to make money. So as I tell you this right now, it is all available to order. White tape light is on the shelves and in stock at your favorite distributors. If you're looking for the raw version, Homeworks is available and orderable now. And the RGB tape is available and orderable now as a la carte. We'll be announcing when the kits will be available for the RGB Plus tape later this year. So let's open it up to questions.
Yeah, we got a lot coming in. Thank you, everyone. We're super excited to get this, get rolling with these questions and answers. So, a couple of quick ones that I'll just knock out of the way. So some questions about what type of device this is. If you're working within a RadioRA 3 or homework system, this is a Clear Connect Type X device. So it does not work in Caseta. It does not work in RA2 Select. It's Clear Connect Type X. So it's going to work in your RadioRA and homework system, RadioRA 3 and homework systems. The other question was about, do you need any type of catcher qualification to work with Lumaris? You do not. So Lumaris is its own product line working for RadioRA 3 and Homeworks. There's no qualification program required. So we welcome any and all to getting started with Lumaris. A bunch of technical questions coming in here, my friend Devin, so you better be ready for these. So one question, can there be separate home runs, so to speak, from each RGB or from an RGB controller to each separate section, say in a kitchen? And if so, what is the max distance for a 6-conductor run?
Sure. For a home run, if you're home running from the tape to the controller, we allow a 10 feet total tape. Our total wire, 10 feet total wire between your controller and the tape.
Awesome, thank you. Another one, a lot of installs don't allow me to locate a controller within 10 feet of the tape. Can I upsize the wire to remote the controller further?
Yes, that's a good question. So that's something we're actually coming out with the capability with very soon. So very soon in our spec sheet, we'll call out the wire gauges and the wire lengths. So obviously, if you go down to, say, a 14 gauge wire will be the lowest we'll accept. You can have a longer wire run there, and that wire length will be called out in our spec sheet coming very soon. The important thing to note is only 22 gauge wire. So only the wire that we provide will work with our connectors. So if you do run a lower gauge wire for a longer distance, you'll have to splice down a 22 gauge to get into that connector for the tape.
Great, thank you. Okay, another one here. With RGB, how many zones of 32 feet tape can I use per the power supply, the hardwired power supply, the PH3? Do I get 3 zones or 1 per power supply?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the 32 feet of tape adds up to 96 watts, and your power supply is also 96 watts. So it's up to 32 feet of tape per power supply. And if you have one controller on one power supply, you can also do 32 on that one controller. but you can also do up to 3 controllers on one power supply. So even with the RGB, 3 controllers, 1 power supply. However, the total length of tape across those 3 controllers cannot exceed 32. So you can do like 10 feet of tape on each controller. It would add up to 30 feet, so you'd still be good with 3 controllers on 1 power supply in that case. I hope that helps.
Thank you. So another kind of related question, what is the maximum distance between controllers and power supply?
Controller and power supply. That is on our spec sheet now. So if you go online and look at our tape light solution spec sheet, we call out the distance of the wire length from power supply to controller for both the tunable white and the multi-channel.
Great. They're coming in fast and furious, trying to triage them. So, can the 6-conductor cable be upsized to increase the 10-foot limit? Many projects I do will require multiple controllers for a small job with less than 16 feet of tape.
Yep, that was we actually already got a very similar question to this. That's coming soon to the spec sheet. We'll call out what distances those are with the smaller wire gauge.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, great one. Since I mentioned the longevity on the webinar, what is the warranty for Lumaris?
So our standard warranty on any system is 5 years, as long as you're using all Lutron components start to finish and fitting within the standard spec.
Excellent, thank you, Delia. Here's a lighting question. I don't know, we may have to look this up, Earl, and get back to you, but what is the macadam ellipse rating of our LED tape light?
3. So we're within 3 macadam ellipses for both 1800 and 4000 on our RGB tunable white, and we're within 3 macadam ellipses on both our soft white and daylight as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Devin.
Of course.
Okay, one more question. Briefly explain level and color preset programming for RA3 keypad buttons.
I can take that one if it would be helpful.
Sure.
So can you repeat the question one more time? Sorry.
Yes. So I think this person's looking briefly explain level and color preset programming for RA3 keypad buttons. So I think how are we integrating perhaps RGB and intensity or CCT and intensity with keypad buttons?
Right. It's very similar to that of a catcher load, but I know people in RA3, this is the first time that we have color control in RA3, so it's very new. When you make your keypad, you can do a dimming on intensity. So if you do say a 3 BRL Pico keypad, you can do a dimming intensity from 0 to 100. We do not allow color tuning with a keypad like that. So you can't raise and lower the CCT or raise and lower across the rainbow. It only works with intensity, but you can do presets on certain intensities and whichever color you'd like as a preset.
Excellent. Thank you, Devin. All right. Well, other questions that came through, we could try to follow up with you offline. I'm not sure there are things we could answer verbally right now, but one question about looking for a planning diagram about how the stairs were done, how the stairs were wired. So we can look to get back to you on that, Barry. And then there was another looking for an example of an angled corner installation. Luis, we can see what we can find out and share with you offline to help with that project.
I also have one note about macadam ellipse. There's a couple of things here for color rendering. We have a 90 plus CRI rating on our tape. So we are definitely in above the 90 percentile of our color rendering index. And for the most part, anything within a 1x2 or 2x2 macadam ellipse is generally considered really, really, really good. So tape light's a little bit different. Our Ketro line definitely stays within a 1x2. but 3x3 is actually very, very solid in terms of performance. And a lot of the tapes, it's a really interesting one, especially when we go into RGBs, they won't even show a measurement for that. So you can't even find it. Generally speaking, when you can't find it, it's not going to be good. So, because you wouldn't want to post it.
Thanks, Delia. Question from Brian. Can you set a 4-button Pico to 3 separate colors in RAW 3?
100%.
Actually, Devin, this is not asked in the chat, but since you said 100% to answer that, what's the lowest dimming for an RGB color? So if I do purple in tape light, what's the lowest that I can dim to intensity wise?
1%.
1%. Thank you. Can the end user adjust color and intensity in the app? Yes, they can. Thank you for that question, Nicholas. You'll do the programming in the software side and designer, and then the homeowner can use their, whether it's, their Lutron app, RadioRA 3, or their Homeworks app to adjust color and intensity and create new scenes as well. Paul, thank you for the question. Are you sending this presentation out? We will post it on our My Lutron Resources portal. We'll also post the recording to YouTube as well, so you can find that shortly. Question from Scott. When will Canvas View be available in RAW 3?
End of year is the goal. Yep, end of year.
End of 2024, correct?
Yes, 2024.
Great.
No Lutron too well.
Yeah, exactly. End of this year. Question from Sal. Can the light strips be used in humid areas like bathrooms?
They are rated for damp areas. Usually when people ask about bathrooms, we say it's rated for in the bathroom, but not in the shower.
Perfect.
Have an actual IP rating, like 66 or something?
They're all IP20.
IP20s. Okay, perfect.
Is technically indoor damp, up to indoor damp, but not indoor wet.
All right, we got about 1 minute left here. I think we're winding down. Gil asked, how do you control the RGB in RAW 3?
Showing the RGB in RAW 3. So as we saw in the presentation, you need your controller. Once you get your controller, you hook up your tape. The controller will count as a CCX device. So you go in your designer, you would add this as a smart light. So under your program tab, or not under program, in your device tab, you go and do smart lights as a new dropdown and RAW 3. You add this load, and then when you go to activate it, you activate it from your app, and then now you have a RGB control in RAW 3.
Okay, similar question. In RAW 3, can Lumaris RGB tunable white be saved to buttons in the app?
Totally.
Can also be accessed via voice control, which is also helpful when you run out of buttons.
Yes.
And time clock events. That was a good addition, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
I have mine set to a time clock, so at night it gets dimmer and warmer. And I also have the day-night modes, which is the natural show equivalent for RAW. I do enjoy that feature.
Edward asks, where do we find the tape light specs? So if you go to RadioRA3.Lutron.com, go to the system devices section of that website, and you can find all the information there, including the brochure, the spec sheets, any other information you would need to plan this on a project.
They also have really great SEO, and if you just Google Lutron tape light specs, it will pop up as the first. I just checked just in case.
Come on, Delia, let me get the web traffic from this event that we put on, will you?
Okay, my bad.
All right, everyone. Well, we'll wind it down now. Looks like we're starting to see some fall off. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Like we said, this will be available recorded online on YouTube. Please reach out to your reps, to us. We are super excited to see you all succeed and start trying this with your projects. So best of luck. Try it. You'll love it. And if you need any help with doing that, reach out and we'll be happy to help you out. Have a great rest of your day.